Welcome back to Dr. Healthy Hub. Have you ever looked down at your feet in the evening and noticed your shoes feel tighter, your socks leave deep marks, or your ankles seem noticeably swollen? Most people immediately blame salt, aging, poor circulation, or even serious health conditions. But what if there is another piece of the puzzle that rarely gets discussed?
What if the swelling in your legs and ankles is actually linked to a hidden nutrient shortage that affects millions of adults, especially those over 50? The truth is, your body has an incredible system designed to keep fluid exactly where it belongs. Every second of every day, tiny microscopic pumps inside your cells work tirelessly to control the movement of water, sodium, and other minerals. But when these pumps don't get the nutrients they need, that delicate balance can begin to break down.
The result? Water may start accumulating in places it shouldn't, leading to puffiness, swollen ankles, and heavy, uncomfortable legs. In today's video, we're going to uncover the fascinating science behind fluid retention in simple, easy-to-understand language. You'll discover the surprising nutrient that plays a central role in this process, along with 2 essential minerals that help keep your body's fluid balancing system running smoothly. By the end of this video, you'll understand why swelling isn't always as simple as too much salt, and what factors may be quietly contributing to the problem without you even realizing it. So stay with us, because what you're about to learn could completely change the way you think about swollen legs and ankles.
Once you understand how these 3 nutrients work together, you'll begin to see why common advice does not always solve the problem, and what factors may be worth paying attention to instead. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss future videos. Also, leave a comment below telling us your age and where you're watching from. Now, let's start with what swelling actually is, because once you understand that, everything else becomes much easier to follow. The medical term for swelling in the legs, ankles, and feet is edema. Edema simply means an accumulation of fluid in the spaces between your cells. Your body is full of water, but that water is meant to be distributed in very specific places. Some of it stays inside your cells, some circulates through your bloodstream, and some occupies the spaces between cells, known as the interstitial space. Under normal conditions, your body carefully maintains a balance between these different compartments. Fluid moves out of the bloodstream into tissues to deliver nutrients, then returns to the bloodstream and lymphatic system to be carried away. This balanced exchange happens continuously throughout your life. Edema develops when that balance is disrupted, and fluid begins accumulating in the interstitial space faster than it can be removed. Because of gravity, this fluid often collects in the lowest parts of the body. For people who spend much of the day standing or sitting, that usually means the ankles, feet, and lower legs. This is one reason swelling tends to be worse in the evening and may improve overnight. While lying down, gravity is no longer pulling fluid toward the feet, allowing some of it to redistribute throughout the body.
But the important question is this: why does fluid leave the bloodstream and collect in the tissues in the first place? To answer that, we need to look at one of the body's most important fluid-regulating systems. The movement of water in and out of your cells is heavily influenced by the balance of 2 minerals, sodium and potassium. Sodium is found primarily outside your cells, within the bloodstream and surrounding fluids. Potassium is found primarily inside your cells. Water naturally follows these minerals. Wherever sodium concentrates, water tends to move. Wherever potassium concentrates, water tends to remain as well.
Your body works continuously to maintain the correct balance between sodium and potassium because this balance helps regulate fluid distribution and supports healthy nerve and muscle function. The structure responsible for maintaining this balance is known as the sodium-potassium pump. This microscopic protein pump is embedded within the membrane of nearly every cell in your body. Thousands of these pumps exist within each individual cell. Their job is ongoing and constant. They push sodium out of cells while pulling potassium into cells, helping maintain the delicate balance required for normal function. This process requires a tremendous amount of energy. In fact, a significant portion of the energy your body produces every day is used simply to keep these pumps running.
When these pumps begin to slow down, sodium can start accumulating where it shouldn't, in the spaces outside and around cells. As mentioned earlier, water follows sodium. When sodium begins building up in the interstitial space, water is drawn out of the bloodstream and into that same area. The tissue gradually becomes waterlogged. In the lower legs, where gravity is already working against you, this excess fluid becomes the visible swelling many people struggle with every day. This is interstitial fluid retention. This is edema at the cellular level. The next question is obvious. What causes the sodium-potassium pumps to slow down or stop working efficiently? Because once you understand that, you can start looking at the underlying causes instead of focusing only on the symptom. Two major factors often play a role. The first is elevated blood sugar, and the second is a shortage of the nutrients these pumps need to operate properly.
Let's start with blood sugar, because this surprises many people. You do not have to be diabetic for blood sugar to affect fluid retention. Even moderately elevated blood sugar levels can create problems through a process known as glycation. Glycation occurs when excess sugar molecules in the bloodstream attach themselves to proteins. Imagine sugar acting like a sticky coating moving through your circulation. When there is too much of it, it begins attaching to structures throughout the body. One important target is hemoglobin, the protein inside red blood cells responsible for carrying oxygen. When hemoglobin becomes glycated, red blood cells become less flexible and less efficient at delivering oxygen and nutrients where they are needed. This is actually the principle behind the A1C test, which measures glycated hemoglobin and provides an estimate of average blood sugar levels over the previous few months. Glycation can also affect circulation in the tiny blood vessels of the lower legs. These vessels play a critical role in moving fluid out of tissues and back into circulation. When circulation through these small vessels becomes less efficient, fluid clearance slows down and swelling can become more noticeable. But elevated blood sugar creates another problem that is even more directly connected to fluid retention. It encourages the body to hold on to more sodium. As you've already learned, where sodium goes, water follows. When blood sugar levels remain elevated, the kidneys tend to reabsorb more sodium. As sodium is retained, additional water is retained alongside it. Over time, persistently high blood sugar can also affect the small nerves in the feet and lower legs, contributing to symptoms such as tingling, numbness, or reduced sensation. This means that even without a diabetes diagnosis, frequent spikes in blood sugar, especially after meals rich in refined carbohydrates, sugary drinks, pastries, white bread, and highly processed snacks, may contribute to swelling through several different mechanisms at the same time. Now let's move to the nutrients that help support the sodium-potassium pump. The first and most important is potassium. Potassium is the mineral primarily found inside your cells and acts as a natural counterbalance to sodium. When potassium levels are adequate, the body is better able to release excess sodium and the water that accompanies it. In simple terms, potassium helps encourage the body to let go of excess fluid. The challenge is that many adults do not consume enough potassium on a regular basis. Experts generally recommend approximately 4,700 milligrams per day, yet many people consume far less than that amount. Reaching this target often requires a conscious effort to include potassium-rich foods consistently. Foods such as avocados, leafy greens, vegetables, beans, and many fruits can contribute meaningful amounts of potassium throughout the day. The goal is to make potassium-rich foods a regular part of your routine,
rather than something you consume occasionally. Adequate potassium intake helps support healthy fluid balance while providing one of the key ingredients the sodium-potassium pump relies on to function effectively. The second important nutrient is magnesium. Magnesium is frequently overlooked, yet it plays a vital role in this entire process. The sodium-potassium pump depends on magnesium to operate efficiently. Without enough magnesium, the pump cannot function at full capacity, regardless of how much potassium is available. Magnesium also helps regulate the movement of sodium and potassium across cell membranes and supports healthy blood vessel function, both of which are important for circulation and fluid balance. Many adults consume less magnesium than recommended. Good food sources include pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds, leafy green vegetables, legumes, and other nutrient-dense whole foods. Potassium and magnesium work together as partners. When either one is lacking, the entire system becomes less efficient. Before we discuss the nutrient that sits at the center of this process, it is important to understand just how demanding the sodium-potassium pump really is. This is what makes the next piece so important. Studies of cellular energy suggest that a significant portion of the energy your body produces at rest is devoted to powering sodium-potassium pumps. Think about that for a moment. A large share of your body's energy budget is spent simply keeping sodium outside cells and potassium inside them. That is how essential this balance is to normal function. Your body considers this process so important that it continuously invests enormous amounts of energy to maintain it. And anything that requires that much energy becomes vulnerable when energy production begins to decline. If the body's energy supply starts to falter, these pumps can be among the first systems affected because they consume so much fuel. This insight connects everything we've discussed so far and brings us to a nutrient that often receives far less attention than it deserves. That nutrient is vitamin B1, also known as thiamine. Let's look at why thiamine is so important. Earlier, we discussed how sodium-potassium pumps require a constant supply of energy to move sodium out of cells and potassium into them. That energy comes from the body's ability to convert food, especially carbohydrates, into usable cellular fuel. Vitamin B1 plays a critical role in this process. Thiamine is involved in the metabolic pathways that help transform glucose into energy. Without adequate thiamine, cells become less efficient at generating the energy they need. Because sodium-potassium pumps have such high energy demands, they can be especially affected when thiamine levels are inadequate. This means that even if potassium and magnesium intake are sufficient, low thiamine levels may still interfere with the efficient operation of these pumps because the energy supply itself is compromised. That energy comes from the body's ability to convert food, especially carbohydrates, into usable cellular fuel. Vitamin B1 plays a critical role in this process. Thiamine is involved in the metabolic pathways that help transform glucose into energy. Without adequate thiamine, cells become less efficient at generating the energy they need. Because sodium-potassium pumps have such high energy demands, they can be especially affected when thiamine levels are inadequate. This means that even if potassium and magnesium intake are sufficient, low thiamine levels may still interfere with the efficient operation of these pumps because the energy supply itself is compromised. As pump efficiency declines, sodium may accumulate outside cells, water follows, and fluid retention can become more noticeable. This is one reason vitamin B1 is frequently discussed in conversations about fluid balance and swelling. What makes this particularly relevant is how common low thiamine intake can become, especially among people who consume large amounts of refined carbohydrates and added sugars. Here is the irony. The more refined carbohydrates and sugar the body processes, the greater the demand for thiamine becomes. At the same time, many refined foods have had much of their naturally occurring thiamine removed during processing. As a result, demand increases while supply decreases.
Over months and years, this combination may contribute to a gradual decline in thiamine status, which mirrors the slow development of many age-related health concerns. When you put the entire picture together, it becomes easier to understand why simple advice, such as reducing salt intake or elevating the legs, does not always address the full problem. Reducing salt addresses only one aspect of the sodium-potassium balance. It does not address potassium, magnesium, or thiamine, all of which play important roles in supporting normal cellular function. Elevating the legs may temporarily shift fluid using gravity, but it does not influence the cellular processes involved in maintaining fluid balance.
In other words, symptom management and addressing contributing factors are not always the same thing. If this information has been helpful so far, leave a comment below with the number 1 so we know you're still watching and finding value in the discussion. Now, let's focus on practical steps. First, make potassium-rich foods a daily priority. Aim to include a variety of potassium-containing whole foods throughout the day. Avocados, leafy greens, beans, vegetables, and many fruits can make meaningful contributions toward your daily intake. Many people are surprised to learn that foods such as avocados and leafy greens often provide more potassium per serving than foods that are commonly associated with potassium, such as bananas.
The goal is consistency. Second, pay attention to magnesium intake. Foods such as pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds, legumes, nuts, and leafy green vegetables are excellent sources. Magnesium supports numerous functions throughout the body, including muscle function, sleep quality, nerve signaling, circulation, and cellular energy production. Potassium and magnesium work closely together, which is why focusing on only one while ignoring the other may limit results. Third, consider your vitamin B1 intake. One of the most effective ways to support thiamine status is by reducing the excessive consumption of refined carbohydrates and added sugars.
Doing so may help lower the demand placed on thiamine while also supporting healthier blood sugar balance. This approach addresses two important factors at the same time: reducing nutrient depletion and supporting better metabolic health. When the constant overload of refined carbohydrates and added sugars is reduced, the body may have a better opportunity to maintain healthy thiamine levels and support normal cellular energy production. Food sources of thiamine include sunflower seeds, legumes such as beans and lentils, nutritional yeast, and minimally processed whole grains. Some people also explore thiamine supplements as part of their wellness routine. If you're considering supplements, it's always wise to discuss them with a qualified healthcare professional, especially if you have existing medical conditions or take medications.
That focus is appropriate because these conditions require prompt attention. However, once serious causes have been ruled out, discussions about nutrition, blood sugar balance, potassium, magnesium, and vitamin B1 are not always part of the conversation. As a result, many people spend years managing symptoms without fully exploring lifestyle and nutritional factors that may also influence fluid balance. Understanding these factors can provide a broader perspective and help people make more informed choices about their health. Another common question is how long it might take to notice a difference. The answer is that meaningful changes usually take time. The systems involved in fluid regulation operate continuously, but they do not typically change overnight.
As dietary habits improve and nutrient intake becomes more consistent, the body's normal regulatory processes may gradually respond over the course of weeks or months. Some individuals notice changes sooner, while others require more time, depending on their circumstances, overall health, and nutritional status. The key is consistency. One day of healthy eating cannot instantly reverse years of nutritional imbalance, but consistently providing the body with the nutrients it needs while reducing factors that may interfere with healthy function can support long-term improvements. It is also important to keep this discussion in perspective. Swelling in the legs and ankles can have many causes, and some of them can be serious. Sudden swelling, swelling that affects only one leg, swelling accompanied by pain, redness, warmth, chest discomfort, or shortness of breath should never be ignored and should be evaluated promptly by a healthcare professional.